Challenger jet crash, update number 2. Young pilots and owners, let me give you 2 statements that you need to memorize and use during your career. Sir, I'm sorry, but the weather conditions are too bad for us to make a safe flight. We can't go. If I don't want to go, you sure don't want to go. That's statement number 1. Statement number 2, I will never do anything to jeopardize the crew, the passengers, the airplane, or an FAA rule. That's 2 things you got to memorize. You got to be able to say that to your boss early in your career. Once you say it 2 or 3 times, it comes easy. If you falter and you give in and you start taking off in bad weather, bad conditions, broken airplane, it's going to get worse. You need to learn to say that early in your career. Now, when you go to the airlines for an interview, these are 3 questions they're going to ask you. They're going to say, well, what if it's Christmas night and you're doing your pre-flight and you're trying to get back home to be off for a week and you got 40 passengers on the airplane and you look and you see that one of your position lights on the wing is out? What would you do? This is the answer to that question. I would never do anything to jeopardize the crew, the passengers, the airplane, or an FAA rule. Now, in reality, you're going to walk out there with the captain. You're not going to say anything. You're going to point at it. He's going to do this, and he's going to do this. You're going to take off, and you're going to go home for Christmas, and they're going to fix the light when you get there. It could have gone out in the middle of the flight. That's the reality. But the answer to that question is this. I would never do anything to jeopardize the crew, the passengers, the airplane, or an FAA rule. Now that we're on this subject, something else they're going to ask you at your airline interview. What if you're flying with a captain and when you get down to minimums at 200 foot and you can't see anything and he keeps descending? What are you going to do? Well, this is what you're going to say. Number 1, I would never do anything to jeopardize the crew, the passengers, the flight, or an FAA rule. That's a FAA rule. You get to 200 foot trying to land and you can't see anything, you have to go around. So what do you do? Key to Mike and say, citation 1, 2, 3, 4, we're missed approach. Then he has to go around. They're also going to ask you, what if you're on a 4-day overnight and you get up for breakfast and you smell alcohol on the captain's breath? What are you going to do? Well, this is what you're going to say. I would never do anything to jeopardize the crew, the passengers, the airplane, or an FAA rule. So, well, what would you say to that captain? Well, first, I would try to just talk to him. Maybe that's his mouthwash. Maybe that's his cologne. I would watch and see his characteristics and how he acts and how he answers questions. And then if I figured out, this guy's got a hangover and he's partly drunk, then I would say to the captain, Captain, look, I don't think you feel well. Why don't you just call in fatigue and we'll get another captain here. You don't want to confront him unless he's just drop dead drunk. But that's the answer to all of those questions. Now, you have to say that to your boss in a nice, humble, diplomatic way. Sir, I'm sorry, but the weather is really bad. There's a lot of things against us. I don't think it's going to be safe to take off. If we wait 6 hours or maybe wait till in the morning, it's going to be much better. If I don't want to go, you sure don't want to go. That's the way you got to say it. Now, if he starts saying, my other pilot, he would have done it, my other pilot done it. If he starts saying all that, you just got to say, look, I'm sorry. It's not safe to go. You got to raise your tone just a hair. Like I said in my other video, I used to fly for a guy. He used to say that all the time. My other pilot would have done it. We were supposed to leave Memphis one day and go to Chicago. There were thunderstorms everywhere. I said, no, I'm not going. He said, my other pilot would have done it. I said, well, I ain't going. So he said, I'm missing a meeting. It's going to cost me $3 million. I'm going to go get an airliner. Well, he went to Memphis Airport and got a ticket. So he called me later that night. He says, Glenn, we finally got here 8 hours late. We loaded the plane in Memphis and sat for 2 or 3 hours because the weather was too bad and they wouldn't let the airliner take off. Well, if the airliner won't take off, our little Cessna 210 sure isn't going to take off. So he apologized to me, but I made the right decision. So you young guys, you're going to have to learn that early in your career. That's all they should have said. The Legion airplane de-iced. It didn't hold. He went back to get again, and I think they canceled their flight. Flights all over the United States canceled because of weather. One reason, they can't de-ice the planes fast enough. Another reason, when there's a long line of planes, everything comes to a crawl. You got to taxi slow because of the snow and the ice and the low visibility. So when you put the fluid on the plane to clean the plane first, then you put the second fluid on the plane, which is like a gel that sits on the wing, and the snow is kind of deflected off of it, and it won't freeze to the wing. That's only good depending upon the temperature, the wind, the snow, how wet the snow is, how fast it's snowing. That's a complicated process. So all over the United States, the airports can't keep up. They can't keep up de-icing everybody quick enough and taking off. You almost need to set the de-icing machine at the end of the runway and spray them right before they take off. But when you have major airlines canceling all over the United States for that reason, you just can't go. Now, they're saying this. Well, the Challenger jet has a problem with ice on the wing. Guess what? Every plane has a problem with ice on the wing. It doesn't matter what plane it is. Every plane cannot have ice on the wing. If you walk out in the morning and you're 172 and you see a little bit of frost on the wing, just a little bit, you cannot go. You have to take the plane and turn it around and face it to the sun and let it set 2 or 3 hours and let the frost come off of it. And then you got to make sure you still got to clean it. It is the captain's responsibility to physically inspect the wing before takeoff to make sure there's nothing on that plane anywhere. When I was flying 135, which is basically a taxi cab, a jet taxi cab at $5,000 an hour, before every takeoff, we had to answer 20 questions. Does the captain have less than 100 hours? Does the FO have less than 100 hours? Is it snowing? Is the visibility low? Is the runway wet? Is the runway shorter than 4,000 foot? And if like 10 of those questions was a yes, you had to call the chief pilot and discuss it. And discuss every little thing that was a yes to work it out to make sure you could go. Now, a flight like that, low visibility, and when I say low visibility, the runway visual range, there's 2 lights on the airfield, and there's a beam. And if it's too much snow and that beam can't connect, your visibility is below 600 foot. These airliners, a lot of them can't take off because that's their restriction. That plane, the Bombardier plane, 600, was a privately owned plane. It has Part 91 rules, which is very lax rules. The airliners, if it's below 600 foot runway visual range, you can't even taxi unless the airport runway light system and taxi system has the special lighting that you can follow, and you have to be trained in the simulator to do that. I'm sure that plane, they probably pay $100,000 a year to train those 2 pilots because of insurance. And I'm sure they trained that in the simulator. But training in the simulator in real life is 2 different things. So a lot of the airliners, legally, they can't take off because their rules are tighter, because they're under 121 rules, and their rules are tighter. You heard the Allegiant guy saying, what's the runway visual range? Because we have to have a mile to take off, and they were reporting 3/4 of a mile. Now, if you're a Part 91, a lot of those rules don't apply to you, which, some of that ought to be changed in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. So it would have been better for the Capitan to say to the owner, we need to wait 6 hours or wait till in the morning till the weather improves. They might have been 8 hours late, but they would still all be alive. So young pilots, you need to learn that early in your career to say those 2 phrases. And you owners, you need to accept that. Every single day, owners press their pilots to go. Every single day. Thunderstorms, well, we can go around them. Bad weather, low visibility. Oh, my other pilot did it. And that plane is capable of doing that. It's very capable of doing that. But when you have so many factors involved that are against you, you just got to learn to say no. Pilots have a big ego. They don't want to say no. Well, we did it in the simulator, and this is a $30 million airplane. It can do it. The airplane doesn't crash itself. The pilot crashes the airplane. So learn early in your career to say no to your boss. In the airlines, if the captain says no, no means no. And they respect it. And a lot of times in the airlines, the captain, he'll just give the information to the company, and the company will say no. And if you've got a good owner, if you go to him diplomatically and you say, look, there's snow on the runway, it's a little bit of a crosswind, we can't see the end of the runway. Usually, if you're sitting on the end of the runway and you can see the lights, the first set of lights, that's 600 foot. You know you got 600 foot. If you can see the first hash mark, that's 1,000 foot. So if you say to the boss, look, we can't even see down the runway to take off. It's snowing. We can't see down the runway. People are canceling everywhere. The airlines are canceling flights everywhere. The weather's just not good. And if we do take off and we do have trouble, the weather is difficult to come back here and land. We're going to have to fly somewhere else. And right now, there's nowhere else to fly within a couple of 100 miles. It's just not a safe situation. You heard the other pilot, I think it was an Allegiant plane, he said, our runway visual range is not good. We're going to have to follow an alternate airport. Means if he takes off and loses the engine or has a problem, he can't even come back and land there. It's so bad because of his strict rules. So you've got to notice when there's too many things against you. And it's just better, let the boss be mad. I'd rather have the boss mad and alive and a $30 million airplane not destroyed than to try and go and have an accident. So that's the update on the crash. They got a little ice on the wing. See, the way the wing works, when it gets up speed, the air going over the wing is curved. The air going over the top is going faster than the air under the bottom. And this makes a low pressure. and it pulls the plane up. That air needs to go over smooth and fast. If there's ice on the wing, when the air hits it, it starts gurgling and it doesn't produce the lift. If one wing has a little ice on it and the other wing is clean, this one produces lift and this one doesn't. So that makes it want to do this, which is probably what happened. It might have been a swept wing jet. The wings are like this. It has to have more speed and it's more critical on takeoff and landing. A swept wing aircraft on takeoff, you have to be perfect because of the swept wing. It's not producing the lift. It's made for speed. It's not made for takeoff and landings. So it's very critical. And if they barely had some ice on the wing in one stall, it'll do this right here quick because one wing is flying and one wing is not, and it wants to do this. The only way to combat that is pull the power back, and you can't pull the power back. I think they just barely took off, and immediately they did that. So it's just ice. It's looking like it's going to be ice. You don't need but just a little bit of ice on the swept wing like that. If one wing flies, the other one doesn't. So it looks like it was ice on the wing. It's sad, but that's the update. That's what it's looking like. Learn to say no and learn, owners, to accept that. I had a FedEx guy tell me 35 years ago. He said, Glenn, never let the airplane rush you, the controllers rush you, the passengers rush you, or your boss rush you. If you're taxiing and you're busy and you gotta work on something in the cockpit, you tell the controller, we need a couple of minutes, we need to pull over to the side, we need a couple of minutes. Don't let them be rushing you. Don't let the passengers rush you. Oh, we're going to be late for a meeting. We got to get a taxi cab. We got restaurant reservations. Don't let the weather rush you. We got to hurry up and get there because there's going to be a snowstorm or a thunderstorm coming in. Never let the plane, the controllers, the passengers, or the boss rush you. Also, you need to know another FedEx pilot told me this. You need to know where the nose of that airplane is going to be 15 minutes before it gets there. So if you're fixing to take off and the weather's bad and there's snow, you can't see down the runway, there's ice, those guys de-icing that plane. There might have been a little air in the machine or something and they might have missed a spot. It's just too many complicated things to deal with. It's better just wait till tomorrow. Wait till tomorrow. When it's light outside, the snow has stopped, they've plowed that runway. They're plowing that runway continuously. Let the runway be plowed. Let the snow be stopped. Then you've taken your risk from here down to here. Every time you take off, you got a risk like this. You're never going to get away from that. There's always a risk factor taking off and landing. Anytime you get in an airplane, there's a risk factor. But you want it to be here. You don't want it to just be 150%. You want to keep it 20, 30%. So that's what you got to learn, young pilots. And you owners, you need to learn that too. When you plan that flight, owners, you got to plan that flight and you got to think in your mind, okay, I got this business meeting set up. I'm going to tell these people, yes, we're coming. But if there's a problem with the plane or the weather, we might be late. So don't put it in stone that we're going to be there for dinner at 7 o'clock and have a business meeting at 8 o'clock. because we might have to stop for weather or mechanical issues. It's just a sad situation. But that's pretty much the update for the airplane crash. If we get any more information, I'll update us tomorrow. Thanks.